Alright then boys and girls, get to your battle stations. Dawn of War 3 Remastered has just been announced. Haha, little bit of a joke there for you. But in all seriousness, Dawn of War 4, quite an exciting announcement, especially following up on the Dawn of War Definitive Edition release. Now I for one am obviously quite excited about this release, considering that it's Dawn of War related, and this is indeed a Dawn of War channel. But believe it or not boys and girls, I am also quite a little bit skeptical. I'm still a little bit hurt and looking back in horror at the release of Dawn of War 3, the Dawn of War that shall not be named. But we shall go into this with an open mind. We shall look at all that there is to offer in the trailer and have a ganders at all the bits and bobs, maybe a little bit of reading in betwixt the lines and seeing what we can kind of fandangle and find out. And we'll have a genuine sharing of opinions, I feel. I've watched a couple of other channels covering this. I won't mention any names because, you know, we're a polite, friendly channel. A lot of people are quite gushingly positive about this stuff, saying, oh my goodness, it's going to be amazing. But I remember Dawn of War 3, gosh darn it. I remember all the things people said about that. And if I've got some negative opinions, I'm not going to be, you know, shy to share them. I mean, if any of you have seen my Space Marine 2 video about my opinions of that video game, you'll know that I'm not afraid to share some opinions that are definitely less than popular. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run on the assumption that you at home have watched the trailer in its full. Mainly because watching the whole thing, things go by too quick. There's no point in going into much detail when things are flashing around because we don't get much detail there. We're going to look at some still frames, we're going to break down what we see on the screen, and then we're going to maybe do some theory crafting here. But before then, I would like to say thank you to Play Support for sponsoring this channel. If you're like me, you've got a big pile of plastic shame in the corner of your room, unpainted, unloved, gathering dust. Well, there's a solution to that. Play Support, professional painting, professional printing, all the stuff you could ever want or need to make sure that pile of shame is sorted and tabletop ready. Whether you've got a tournament coming up, or whether you want to, you know, you've got friends coming around and you want to make sure that you look better than them, I guess, you know, flexing and all that, or whatever the kids are saying these days. So, yep. So check them out in the links in the description below, and thank you so much for supporting this channel. Alright then, so let's break down a couple of screenshots that I have got from the video. Now, I do apologise for maybe the grainy quality on these when you're taking a screenshot of a moving video. I did try and take a couple, but these are the best that I could fandangle in the time that I had available. So, first and foremost, the most obvious thing is that even though in the trailer it shows Cyrus being dead, he is here. So I'm assuming it's either just bait, maybe. You know, it's like, oh, what? Oh, look, Cyrus is dead, but actually he isn't. Or maybe it's like one of those films, you know, where they show you the ending at the beginning. He says, haha, my name is Cyrus, and you'll never guess how I got into this situation. And then it's just like a recap of how he got deaded. So maybe that's the thing, but I do quite like how they've got like basically a breakdown of what they do, kind of like in the OG Dawn of War when you highlight something, there's a little tooltip that comes up and shows you the function of the unit, so that's pretty good. Also interesting that there is a experience bar, so that implies that, much like in Dawn of War 2, the longer your forces stay alive, the higher level they become. I can't remember for the life of me if there's experience bars for non-hero units, but we will look at that in the later slides. I've got the memory of Swiss cheese. Nothing stays with me for very long. So yes, we've got that going on. We've also got some armory details here. Maybe this is their armor. This is their armor piercing or something. Maybe that's like their type of damage that they do. I can't quite tell. It's a little bit too small for me and my old man eyes. We've got some abilities here. I'm assuming that this goes up as you start fighting and killing and stuff, much like, again, in Dawn of War 2. And when this number goes to a certain number, you're then able to bring forth, I don't know, maybe an inspiring aura, orbital bombardment, all the classic Space Marine shenanigans and such. And one thing I'm quite interested about what's going on down here is these plus buttons. Now, I imagine that this is like a passive, this is some sort of active ability because there's a hotkey here. This might be the weapon that he's equipped with, but then also that you're able to maybe potentially add some extra bits and bobs to them as well. Kind of like in, well, obviously, I keep on saying like in Dawn of War 2, but also like in Dawn of War OG, where the main thing that I'm really excited about is potentially the game being as flexible as Dawn of War 1 is with the stuff that you can equip your units with, which is a bit more involved than Dawn of War 2, in my humble personal opinion. Moving down to the bottom bit down here, we've got like a nice little display of all the units that are available. Got 2 walker-looking things, 2 I assume are independent heroes, can't quite see them or where they are on the screen, and a couple of tactical and intercessors. I'm assuming that these guys are Primaris, which I know that some of you might be a bit sad about, but we are in, modern history of Warhammer, so that is unavoidable. I've got these reserves. Now, I'm not sure if these reserves are contributing to this population cap over here, but it's quite interesting that we've got this many units, which is 79 squad cap. I'm assuming this is squad cap, out of 300. So, if I'm rounding it up here, this is 1/3, maybe these included, 1/3 of a fighting force, and you can get it 3 times the size. So that is quite a sizable army. When you think about it in Dawn of War 2 terms, I mean, that's more of like a skirmishy kind of game. I know it's not a skirmish kind of game, but if you compare it to Dawn of War 1, and maybe like the mods with like Ultimate Apocalypse and such, we have like large, far-flung armies and stuff. This is quite big. I mean, this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 infantry units, which is quite a substantial amount already, and that's only potentially 1/3. Like I said, I don't know if these are encapsulated in this squad cap or not. But I also quite like how they've all got little symbols to make it very clear. The symbols match up with the symbols on the boys on the screen at the moment. Also, these little doohickeys here, the little red symbols here, which I assume means that they're either attacking or they're in melee, or maybe they're under some sort of effect. Also got a little plus green thing going on over here, which I imagine is some sort of maybe like a buff or something. So, very clear communications to the players of what's going on. I assume he's been highlighted, and that's why he's got like this little circle underneath him. So if you're going to have lots of units like this, and having very clear, distinctive who's where and what is quite important. Now, I know some people might think, I know that on my Discord, some people have said that this looks quite mobile game-ish, and I get that. I completely understand. The first time I saw this, I thought, oh heck, that it's just Dawn of War 3. It just looks like Dawn of War 3 because it's very cartoonish. Is that the word? It's very bright and colourful, and I know that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I get it. But I suppose if you've got this many men on the field, having things like these is going to be quite essential in knowing what on earth is going on the battlefield. So that's that. The mini-map here, now this is what I'm finding interesting at the moment. I'm assuming that this is gameplay of a campaign mission, mainly because this is where the Space Marine base looks like it's being set up. Obviously, we're looking over in the middle-ish side of the map. You've got your power points here and your requisition points. So that looks like that's going to be following the Dawn of War 2 route, where some parts of the map are going to be going towards your orange money, some parts are going to go towards your blue money, which I don't know how I feel about that. I would much prefer, like in Dawn of War 1, where all of them are strategic points, and you build your power or your generator or whatever. Well, I call it green money where I come from back in my land, but because that adds an element to the base building. When you're playing a game and there's some harassment involved, go into the base, kill a few plasma generators, you run out and stuff. That adds like a reason why you attack the base rather than just fight in the middle. But maybe it's just because it's a campaign map. The reason why I think it's a campaign map is because you've got this orange node here, and usually on a PvP map it's quite symmetrical, whereas this map isn't very symmetrical, because if the Necrons were set up on the opposite side, they've got what looks like to me a power node of some description. So I'm assuming that this is a campaign map. Speaking of the map, it looks like there's going to be some sort of building that you might be able to occupy. I know that these boys down here look like they are in some sort of cover. Now, I'm really interested to know what kind of cover system that they're going to really hammer in on here. So it looks like as if this is like all pre-made cover, so they have obvious places to stand and stuff. But I wonder if it's going to be a case of when the battlefield gets destroyed and there's craters on the ground, is it going to be a bit like the Dawn of War 2 Company of Heroes kind of thing, where you right-click, you point in one direction, and they find whatever cover is available to them. I really hope that they avoid the Dawn of War 3 kind of cover system where it's like, oh, it was a big dome. And if your boys are inside the dome, happy times. If they're outside the dome, then not happy times. I know that Dawn of War 1 doesn't exactly have an amazing cover system, which actually, to be honest, it's quite similar to Dawn of War 3 in that regard. But yeah, I like the look of this at the moment. And obviously just the Necron units like that big beastie going on there. Pretty darn cool. I think that's all I need to say about this screenshot here, so we'll move on to the next one. Okay then, so this is the screenshot from when the Admech and the Orks are fighting. Again, apologise for the grainness of the quality here. Things are moving. I'm taking a screenshot. It's the best one can do with the resources I have, because I don't know how technology works. But yeah, I think the Admech are going to love the fact that... I mean, they don't get a lot of love in a lot of video games, do they? I know that they got the Adeptus Mechanicus team squad-based turn thingy-majiggy game, which was all well and good. But being involved in RTS from the get-go, at the expense of other factions like Chaos and Eldari and other quite popular factions, I think they'll be very happy. So you got their, whatever robots, you got the other robots. I don't know anything about the Admech, I'm sorry. I like Orks, I like Tyranids, I like any kind of Swarm faction. These guys are a bit too fancies for my liking. You've also got this doohickey here. I don't know whether it's a turret or whether it's a power nerd that is able to zap people. Ork structures do tend to have lots of guns on them, so that kind of makes sense. But not much really talk about on this slide here, just lots of scrapping going on. And visually, I must say, looks very nice. Even with, as I mentioned on the previous slide, where you've got all these little symbols here telling you which units are doing what. Even when there's no symbols on these smaller skirmishes, it's quite clear what's going on, I think, even with lots of chaos and mayhem going on. So that's not a bad sign. And also, just looking at the terrain itself, I think that, obviously this section here is where actual fighting happens. These bits here aren't exactly part of the combat area. But much like, I think StarCraft 2 is a really good example of maps where even the parts that aren't, where you're actually fighting on, making them look good adds a lot of atmosphere to the game. So I think at the moment so far, 10 out of 10 for atmosphere in those bits. Now this is the screenshot that I'm most interested in, just because it's got loads of little bit of tidbits of information that I think we can really extrapolate on. So first and foremost, same as the first screenshot, we've got a whole bunch of units here, only really taking up 68 of the squad cap, which is very, very interesting. Also, the Orks have got the same squad cap as the Space Marines, and they don't have any reserves. So I wonder if the reserves are a Space Marine thing with the drop pods coming on down, and maybe obviously the Orks have got this war thing here, which I assume has something to do with their war banners. Now, they've also don't have a little number here like the Space Marines did, which I assume that this is a war and this is some sort of like rock Armageddon bombardment thing. So maybe that these abilities are connected to this over yonder is something. They've also got some bits and bobs here. I'm not sure what these might be. They might be like in some RTSs where they've got like a little symbol saying, this unit's under attack. And you click on that and it takes you to whoever's been attacked. But the most interesting thing is this wee guy here. The Mech Boy Utility Infantry, obviously, like I say, it tells you what it does. But the build menu. Now this gives us a little glimpse as to what the base building may or may not look like in the near future. Now we've got cover, we've got a mech gun, so I assume that these are defensive structures. We've got a Gorkanaut, which is an interesting idea. Is it a case where if you want to build up a Titan unit, you throw down a Titan bit? I mean, maybe this is the Titan itself, I can't quite tell. And then you build it up like an actual, like, rather than you recruit it from a building, like, say, for example, this tank here is coming from a building, maybe just slap it down. Kind of like, was it Age of Mythology, where when you want to summon a Titan, you build a thing, and then once you build it, then the Titan comes out. I might be misremembering that, but, I am an old man, so you will forgive me for that, I am sure. Now, currently we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 structures which don't seem to be part of a defense. The Mega Boss Bunker, I'm assuming, is the HQ. The Boys Fort, which is the I assume the production building for infantry. Beast snaggers, now that's an interesting addition. Did not expect to see those guys in Dawn of War 4, but you know what? They are quite a popular option for Ork players. Scrap heap, I assume that is some sort of either a, whatchamacallit, a technology research building. I do know that when they hovered over one of these buildings, if I'm remembering it correctly, it said something about the boys for or one of the other buildings not only producing infantry but also researching upgrades. So maybe it's a case where rather than, okay, you've got your if we're speaking in Dawn of War 1 terms here, rather than getting a boys hut and a pile of guns, the pile of guns and boys hut are all melded into one building, which reduces the capacity for complex base building. But then, I mean, maybe it's forgivable because if this is 1/3, I mean, not even 1/3, 1/12 of a potential army size, I guess, that's a fair enough trade. It seems that this game is going a lot more along the lines of mass armies rather than the base building kind of thing. Maybe, potentially. We don't know. There's not enough information here, but that is the assumption that I am making here. But again, the minimap on the left-hand side, this again looks like another campaign mission, which, that's fine, that's okay. It looks like an interesting map to do a campaign mission on. However, I would really, really like to see the multiplayer maps. I would hate to see them go in the direction of Dawn of War 3, where it's 3 lanes. I mean, I know that not all the maps are like that. Obviously, I've got a very biased view against that game, so please do take my opinions of that grain of salt. Some people do really like it. I just meme about it a lot and pretend it doesn't exist because I'm a bitter old soul. So yeah, so I'd be really interested to see how they lay out the multiplayer maps and such. And also another interesting thing is that I don't know whether this is the Ork hero. I mean, it says utility infantry as it's got you selected here, but it's also not got the it does got like a clear looking hero unit here, unlike in here where you've got look, he's got like a little gold symbol here. So maybe it's not the case where it's like Dawn of War 3 where everyone starts with one mega hero and they or whatever. So that could be a thing. Lots of interesting stuff going on. I mean, by the looks of it, this requisition point down here has got 3 eyes next to it. So it might be a case where, like in Dawn of War 2, you capture a requisition point. The longer you hold it for, the more levels it goes up, so it gets you more gubbins and stuff. So, I mean, that's another thing as well. And of course, we've got the same symbols going on, which you know what, the more I look at them, I initially didn't like them, but actually, with all this information on the screen, especially if you've got all these smirked effects, I mean, there's a unit somewhere here, but we can't see it. But because they've got a symbol here, that's actually a quite a useful thing indeed. Okay, moving on. Now, interestingly, right, so I heard from another YouTube person, and, well, when I say I was watching their video, and they were saying, oh my goodness, each individual unit is going to have their own individual kill sinks, and it's not going to be just one person bashing one other person. You know, you've got one Ork here, again, poor screenshot, I know, but there's the Dreadnought here has grabbed one Ork, and another Ork has clambered onto its arm, and then the Dreadnought kills both of them in one fell swoop. So here's the thing, right? So here, if we were seeing kill sinks like that in this, context, I would be more inclined to believe it. But this seems a bit too clear cut. How would I describe that? It seems like not real gameplay, if that makes sense. It's I don't know whether it's trust it or not, or whether it's because when you see a trailer and they're able to really up the graphics, and up the GPU, and blah blah blah, this, that, and the other. So I'm not sold on this, and I don't know. While that's also a really nice thing, having loads of different kill sinks, if you've got this going on all the time, I don't know if you'll appreciate it all that much. So I don't know. I'm a bit torn on that, but then I also understand that is also really cool. We like kill sinks. Kill sinks are fun. But I'm holding off judgment at the moment. I'll believe it when I see it in an actual game, but at the moment, questionable. I don't know whether it's real or not, but that might just be me being a bit superstitious there. And in the name of keeping things short, sweet, and brief, I think that's all I'm going to go into. There's probably a load more stuff that I'll be thinking of later on as time goes by. Maybe there'll be more releases and such, and I'll certainly be sharing my opinions on that as we go forward. But I think those are the main things I want to talk about, the main screenshots that I really want to deep dive into. And obviously, time is precious, time is money, and I need to go to bed. So yeah, so while I'm largely positive about this, I want to go into this with a open mind, like I said at the beginning of the video. I'm going to hold reservations. I'm going to be very skeptical about this because Dawn of War 3 looked pretty good coming out initially, and then obviously as time went by, the horror grew, and you don't forget a burning like that. So we'll see how things go. We'll see how things pan out as time goes on, and yeah. So if you like Dawn of War and stuff, we have a primarily Dawn of War channel. Come and have a look. Come and have a look at the casts that we do. We also do occasional campaign let's plays and such, and it's all good fun. And yeah, so cheers for sticking around and listening to my half-baked ramblings and stuff. And I'll see you in a bit. Peace.